Rockridge Weekly is interviewing Elinor Wright of Lexington, who was at a girls' camp on February 13th, 1945. The world knows this date as the day that Dresden, Germany was firebombed by the Allies. Um, Eleanor, tell us what you saw at that time.
All right, let me go back a little bit. Those were feeding camps for children, boys and girls. The first time I was sent was in 1942. It was the same place. I don't know exactly where in Dresden it was. We were taken by a bus from the railroad station. The railroad station was a huge modern railroad station that was covered with glass. Um, this second time in 1945, February, the camp was the same. The glass, well, everything was still intact. There had been no bombings in Dresden up to then. Dresden was considered a hospital city. We knew it was full of refugees that were trying to flee the Russians to the west. Also, it was full of hospital trains with wounded soldiers on them. One train I do remember stopping and wondering about, staring at it. It was at the on the last track in the station, and there were German soldiers with rifles, maybe 10 meters away from it, guarding that particular train. I had no idea why or what. I did learn subsequently that it was a train full of Jewish people and other nationalities. Any one of those persons that were decided were not worth living by the National Socialists. And as you know, there were more than 12 million, plus their own in other places. But the camp was as it was before, except the food was terrible. We were given flour soup every day. It's just regular old flour, poured into water and salt, and then boiled until it gets thickish. And there usually were a lot of maggots floating in it, but we were told that's protein, just don't chew. So that, and then the main meal was usually a specialty of the area, which was sweet and sour. What do you call it? The cleaned out bowels of animals, and it's cooked. Do you call that chitlins here? Is that what that is? Yes. Okay. I thought that was horrible, and I remember one meal sitting there. I could not chew it up, and I was told I had to sit there until I had eaten every last bite of it, and the whole group left. I sat there in front of this. By 4 o'clock, I was still sitting there in front of it. And I finally decided to fill my mouth every now and then and go to the bathroom and then come back with an empty mouth and repeat it until the stuff was gone. So I was allowed to go to bed later on. And well, our stay was supposed to be 3 weeks. And we came around the 1st of February. It was cold. There was snow on the ground. Wind, a lot of wind. Our barracks were cold. They were just wooden slabs. There was no insulation. We only had one blanket. It was not very comfortable. But all of us were herded around by the women, and, well, some were in uniform, Nazi get-up, others were not. That one particular night, after we went to bed, we were woken up by the sirens. If you've ever heard an air raid siren in your sleep, it is a horrible thing. It gets you in your groin. You think you can't walk. It's an absolutely horrible thing. Anyhow, we were woken up. uh, get dressed, quick, quick, quick. And we heard the drone of airplanes, but Dresden had never been bombed before, but we heard them fall. Many, many, many. We saw fire through the windows. Eventually we were ready to be running out, but we had to make sure to stay together. The woman in front of us used to yell, "To the river, to the river!" And we ran for a river, but getting closer she realized you could not go through the river because the water was boiling. There apparently had been many devices thrown in there. Anyhow, we ran, we walked, it began to be daylight. But behind us was something that I envisioned Sodom and Gomorrah must have looked like, because it was like a gigantic ball of smoke and fire with flames as the stem. So gigantic it roared, and people screamed. The asphalt, where there was asphalt, that boiled too, and if people stepped on it, a great many got stuck and they didn't know what to do, and I'm sure died a horrible death because wherever they moved, the asphalt was boiling. It was hell, absolute utter hell on earth. We finally were out of town. It was morning. The bombing had seemed to go on all night. By morning it had stopped a little bit, but it came once more. But we were not very close to the city anymore by that time. We were on the way to find some village or somewhere where there was still a railroad, because certainly behind us there was nothing. We found one eventually, and we got tags hung around our necks with our name on it and our destination. And the train was not very long, a few cars, but it was, people hung on it like grapes, something like you see in India sometimes when you are shown pictures of people being on top and on the sides of trains hanging on. We were on the locomotive on the front part. The locomotive stopped once, and we jumped off, running down in the grass. At one point, because there was a lone plane, we used to call them Stuka, divers, dive bombing, that's it. And he had a machine gun in there. Well, that too passed, and we went on, and eventually, but I don't know when, I arrived near my hometown, about 2 kilometers away, and we walked the distance. There were 2 of us from our town at the time. We did arrive home, but I didn't speak of this event until years and years later to my husband. Because every time I do, I'm sorry, it always ends up that way. I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, I understand. Thank you very much.